In this tutorial, we're going to look at menu systems. This is a bit more of a complex tutorial as we will be using previous tutorials, the switch tutorial and the button tutorial, as we need to combine them together in order to create a menu. But first things first, we're going to hit our save on a new project. So create a new project, hit save and go menu. Create our menu, submit up in the top right hand corner. All right, so now we can get into our code. We're going to have our main file here, but we're also going to create a couple more. So we're going to go up to our main file, up to the tab up the top here, and then as this little plus symbol appears, we're going to create another tab, and we're going to create a second tab. So we're going to have tab 1. So we're going to have our main sketch, we're going to have tab 2 and tab 3. First, I'm going to name the first one. We might not need the second tab. We can name it button. Put lowercase, just make sure. Actually, we might not need tab 3. We might just delete tab 3. So you click on it and just delete. All right. Now, I'm going to jump over into my button class, and I'm going to grab the button class. So if it looks like the screen's blank for 2 seconds, it is. Alright, boom. I just copy pasted my button class in from my other project. So make sure you've done the button class beforehand. Control B, it will just line all the text up nice and neat. So we've got all our button class. We've got our constructor, we've got our update loop, we've got our render. So we can create buttons now in our project. So we're going to go back to our main. We're going to get rid of our ellipse that they've got there, and we're going to go background. And we're just going to make 100 grey. We can delete this background now at the top here. We don't need it. All right, so now we've got a fair bit of code we need to add. We're going to start off with our switch. So we need a variable, and we're going to say this is going to be menu is equal to main. I'm going to go, let's put capitals, main, menu, beautiful. So I'm going to use capitals in this one. That's what my variable is called at the moment. My variable name is menu. My value is main menu. So we've got a background. We're going to go switch. We're going to go put our variable in there. Menu. And then don't put a semicolon on the end of it. And we're going to have our open and closing brackets. Now, this is where we put our cases. And the first case we're going to put in is main menu. Now, make sure you got your capitals correct and put a colon at the end of it. We're then going to have open and closing brackets, and we're going to put our break in. So that's our first case. That's our first case. If we save our work and we run this, it should come up with nothing because we don't have anything in this case at the moment. Now I'm going to put some text in there. Let's text size. I want my size to be 30, nice and big. And we're going to put text. We're going to call it game name. And we're making a game. We're going to make a game, and we're going to put it width divided by 2 minus 50, and then we're going to make it 30 from the top. So let's run that now, and we should get, yep, game name. Beautiful, right at the top of the screen. Might make that drop that down a little bit. Now, it's really important that you know where things are, as it will influence. Now, we didn't quite get it centered, so I might just drop it back a bit, maybe 100. There we go, pretty close. Okay, we're going to change it a little bit more, 80. There we go. I'll stop fiddling with it now. All right, there we go. So that's our first case. Now, our second case I think we're going to do is case. The second case, and we're going to put some text in there. I'm just going to copy paste, boom, boom, but I'm going to have it say something different. It's going to say options, and I'm probably going to reduce that by 40. All right, now save work. Always save. It's a good idea to save a lot. All right, so we should get one screen like that, one screen like that, and one will be, have the game title. Or I can't write with this mouse, and one will be options. Cool. So that's what we've got at the moment. And at the moment it's accessing. Let me just go back to my pointer. Yeah. Ooh, I can make it focus in. No, we don't want that. All right. On click. On click, we have our menu variable. It's selecting main menu is what is contained inside it at the moment. When we go to our switch, we've got our menu, and that's our case, our main menu case. So we'll display this bit here. Now, over here, we have an options one. Now, when we run the code at the moment, it should just come up with game name. If we change this to say, this variable to say options, what should happen? You get a title that says options, and I've pretty much got that in the middle. It's pretty good. I could change it a little bit, but I'm not going to. All right. So we now need a way for the main menu. So if we set this back to main menu, to get to options. Yep. We need something on the screen to be able to get to options. So we're going to create a button. Does everyone remember how to make a button? Okay, and I'm going to say this is the options button. Yep. And just remember, in setup is where you need to initialize it. Equal to new. Now we need to remember what we need to add for a button. Button has a few different things it needs to be added to it. It needs an X and Y coordinate, it needs a width and a height, it needs some text, and then it needs RGB for the color. So width and height. All right, let's have a little look. Let's go width divided by 2 minus, how big is my button going to be? My button is going to be 200 wide, so we'll go half of that. And then we'll go height is going to be, well, we got our title at 50 down, so let's go 150 down. So that's our X and Y coordinate, and then our width is going to be 200 because it's double this number I put here. So to get centering, and it's going to be 100 deep. And then we need to put some text in here, and it's going to be options. It's the text that we want written in here, and then we'll give it a color, and we'll give it sporadic, random. Alright, that's a big long-winded bit of code. Let's save our work. If we run this, should still work, won't appear yet, but I'm just checking my code to make sure that I've written all that out correctly. Now, this is where we need to use this now, options button. Where do we want to use this? We want to use this inside our case for main menu because we want the button to be able to go to options in our main menu. So we're going to go options. Button.render. Yeah, and options dot eight. So what does render do? Go into our button class. Don't double click. What does render do? Displays our button, and our update does whether our mouse is inside or outside and whether we've clicked on it or not. Beautiful. So when we run the code now, we should get a button. Yeah, it's a purple button. When we go over the top of it, it highlights. Don't know what happened to our game name. I don't know why it moved so much. That was a bit weird. That is very weird. All right. Let's just. I'm very confused. Why that moved? Oh, I know why. Guess why? I know why. So we're getting this weird error. Why did our game name move? Why did it move after we put these 2 lines of code in? Let's get rid of these 2 lines of code. And this was set to 80, and it looked nice and hunky dory, didn't it? Looks good. It's bang in the center. As soon as I put in this line of code, something went wrong. See, it got shifted. And I'm going to tell you why. In our render, we've got some text processes that we're using text align, which is putting it center, and we've got text size, text and fill. Because we haven't defined up here our text align, it's using the text align from here. Because as the code runs through, it goes, okay, there's no alignment, so it's just set to left align to be default on the first pass of this code. But as soon as it comes to this option, the text gets aligned to center. When it goes back up to the top of the code and runs through it again, it hits this line of code and goes, oh, text is now centered. So to counter that, we can text. Oops, I'll put a space. Text line. Pretty sure that's a variable. And we could go left, left. Oh, I think it is. That's what standard is. There we go. Boom. So we needed text align there to prevent it from crashing. Now we're probably going to need that down here in our options. We're just going to put that in. There you go. So that was pretty interesting. Now let's go put our update back in. So now we should have, that was a little detour, but it's also good to see that sometimes you write code and you don't know what it's going to affect. So let's run our code. Let's see what happens. We've got our game name nice and centered again. We've got our options button and it highlights. When we click on it, nothing happens. So we want something to happen. All right, so if options button dot render, oh, not dot render, dot, what's our variable for when it gets clicked on? It's pressed. That's a smart name for a variable. Pressed is equivalent to true. Then we want to do something. Now, what is it that we want to do? What we want to do is we want to affect our variable that we created at the top here, menu. So we're going to grab that menu and it's equal to, now we're trying to make it go to the options menu. So we're going to put options. We've got to make sure we spelt this exactly the same as we spelt this down here. Make sure all that's spelt the same. There we go. All right, let's run our code. Okay, so we've got our game name, we've got our options. I click on it, boom, it swaps straight over to options. And obviously options doesn't have a button in it, so guess what? We can't go back. But that works, and each time we run it, it will start off with main menu, click on that button, goes to options. That's a really good start. All right, so now in options, we want to be able to go back. We want to be able to have a back button to go back to main menu. So we're going to do the same thing again. Now, I'm just going to do an example with 2 cases. You can have as many cases as you like, and you could have as many buttons as you like. You could create another button in your main menu and put it underneath here and do the exact same thing all over again. You could do all this, but with a different button, and it would work, and you would have another button. So I'm going to create another button, and this one's going to be called back button. I'm going to add a little bit to it. I'm going to call it, I'll change the B to a couple B. options back button, because you might have a couple different back buttons and you might want them in different locations. So we're going to go option back button. That's a big variable name, but it's very descriptive. And then we're going to think about it. We're going to put it in the top left-hand corner of the screen. So we're just going to go 20 by 20. So right top left-hand corner. And we're not going to make it very big. Let's go 80, 50, and then it's just going to be called back. And then it is going to be a big red button. RGB. So 255, 0, 0, boom. Okay, we've got this. Save our work. We haven't saved in a little while. Run it. Code's still working, but it doesn't appear yet. We haven't set the update and the render for this button. I'm going to copy paste that button because we're coders and we're lazy. I'm going to put it down here, dot render, and then options dot update. Boom. Let's have a little look. Run our code. Options. There's a back button. We click on it. It doesn't work yet, but it's there. It appears. So when we refresh our code, game name, options, boom, we've got a back button. All right. So there's only one more bit we need to do, and that is our if statement. So let's go and write an if statement. Still got it saved there in my Control C, Control V. So I just did that. I'm going to go pressed because we know if it's pressed or not is true. Then cool. And menu is equal to, and we want to go back to main menu. Main, whoops, it's capital M. Main menu, boom. And so our if statement for our options back button, and it's pressed, it's equal to true. Then we go menu is equal to main menu. Let's run our code. All right, we've got our name, we've got our options button. We click on it, boom, it goes to the options menu. You can have a whole bunch more code in here that actually give you options, but we've got this button over here. You can see when you're on top of it, click on it, boom, you go back to game name. So you have buttons that flick between two pages. These pages have individualized things on them, and that is the basis of a menu system. You can add in more cases, and I suggest you do at least add 2 more cases, maybe a gameplay one and a maybe a pause menu or something like that, and get the buttons to work so that the main menu can go to 2 different places. Pause, maybe you can only go to it from the gameplay screen, and options you can only access from the main menu. So have a bit of a play around with how many cases you can make, how many buttons you can make. You can make heaps of buttons. You can make 50 buttons. You just got to give them good descriptive names so that it's easy to understand. Make sure you set them up in your setup function, and then make sure you're rendering, updating, and creating your if statements for each button in the case that you want it to appear in. So if you want something to appear in your options, you need to write it within your brackets. Hitting Control B on the keyboard, Control B, will allow you to make your text look nice and neat. And then if you ever forget how that little bit of information, there's a whole bunch of shortcuts actually in this program that allows you to do things really quickly. So, and it's really good for you to know that. And tidy code is right there, Control B. All right, make sure you're saving your work each time. That's it for this tutorial. This one was on how to make menus and how to use buttons in your menu system to move around. All right, that's it for this tutorial.